Hey there, welcome to the Movie Review Mom YouTube channel. If this is the very first time you've been here, yay, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you. And if you're a returning subscriber, yay, thank you so much for coming back. You already know my goal is to save you time and money by giving you the scoop on the filmmaking quality and content, so that you can decide whether or not you want to spend your time and your money watching a particular film. So today, the movie I'm reviewing is called Daddio. This dramatic movie is now playing in theaters. It is definitely rated R, and I'll give you some tips for parents here in just a minute. But the bottom line is this is not an appropriate movie for kids. Plus, they'll be bored. But it's an hour and 41 minutes long, and my overall movie review mom grade is probably about a B, maybe a B minus. But first, let me give you an overview in a nutshell where I'll point out things I liked, things I didn't like, tips for parents, themes worth talking about, funny lines, interesting lines, and we'll finish up with other films that are sort of similar that you might also really enjoy. All right, so in a nutshell, the story is about a woman who takes a very long cab ride from the JFK airport in New York City to Manhattan. And I've done that before. It is a long flight, but they get into this car traffic jam, so it takes even longer, 90 minutes to be exact. She engages in conversations with the taxi driver about the important relationships in their lives. The film was written and directed by Christy Hall. So congratulations to Christy. Let me give you some tips for parents. First of all, I think kids are going to be bored, but so will some adults if this isn't your kind of movie. But where we really get into the rated R content is that there is profanity and many, many F-bombs. There is some very crude texting conversations that we read, including a pic. And I don't want to say the word, but it rhymes with pic. You know what I mean? And then also another picture of a topless woman that she sends to a man. I don't need to see that in real life or in a movie, but there we are. And then there is talk of affairs that people have. Some of the themes that are illustrated very well are infidelity, human connection, which is really the overarching theme of the entire movie, gender roles, generational differences, daddy issues, reflection on relationships, and wisdom from living life. So here's the list of things that I really liked about this movie. First of all, Sean Penn. He gives us a multi-layered character in one of his best performances. So do I smell an Oscar nomination? Well, we'll find out in a few months. It's only July right now. But I did think that he gave a really great performance. Dakota Johnson also gives an excellent performance. She's beautiful as a blonde or brunette, bald, any color. Her skin is flawless in this movie. She's got beautiful fingernails. And in the movie, her age is questioned. She doesn't say how old she is in the movie, but in real life, she's a young 34. She plays a young woman who is having an affair with a married man. Now, I have zero respect for women who can do that. She gives a very compelling performance. And even though I don't like women who do that, I felt for her personality, for her character, I mean, for several reasons. And I don't want to give any spoilers, so I'm not. Now, this kind of movie is called a two-hander, which means there are only two characters in it. The weight of the success of this film rests firmly and squarely in the pair's hands and on the shoulders. Well, there's lots of body parts going on in that little cliche. The good news is that they are both more than capable in these roles. That's an especially impressive feat because the entire movie takes place in the small confines of a taxi. And to be able to hold someone's interest for that long in a short space, there's a little bit of change of movement in various ways, but pretty much it's the taxi driver is driving and she's sitting in the back seat. Anyway, and I still thought it was compelling. There's a conversation about bucket lists, and I highly recommend making one. I've talked about it many times on this channel. I just used to look at my bucket list and say, someday. But then I decided to move those items from my wish list to my calendar to make them happen. And that has made all of the difference in my life. Crossing them off one by one has been such a joy in my life and gives you such an empowered feeling. And of course, the problem with crossing them off is then I discover more things that I want to add to my bucket list. So it's not shrinking, it's just getting bigger and bigger. But I highly recommend doing that. There are even websites dedicated to give you ideas of things you can put on your bucket list. Now, I've asked my sons, what do you want to put on your bucket list? I want to help you cross those things off. And I have one son, and he only has 3 things on his list. I've got like not 300, but at least 100. Anyway, I really enjoyed that part of the conversation so much more than the conversations about sex. And I'll get to that in a minute. There isn't any action in the movie. This is 100% a movie that is a character study, that is dialogue driven. I've had experiences kind of like this when talking with complete strangers, and how it can be very helpful and insightful. They've happened to me several times on really long flights when I'm flying by myself, sitting next to a stranger, and we just start talking and talking. I also had one when I went to a hockey game and sat down next to this lady who was next to her husband, and she and I chatted and became besties the entire time, didn't care much about the game while the husbands, were watching the game. Anyway, be open to that because you can have really great conversations, and there's a freedom to having conversations like that. Knowing you're never going to see that person again allows you to kind of divulge secrets about your life, and get clarity and perspective on your life. Anyway, I really enjoyed that part, but that brings me to one of the things that I didn't like about the movie. So here's that list. The description of the movie promises stimulating conversation, but instead we get a lot of profanity and talk of sex. I would be jumping out of the car if a taxi driver got that personal with me on a ride. I imagine a lot of viewers will walk out during the sexting portion of the film and also be very bored and simultaneously shocked at how quickly the conversation turns to sex. One thing that I did think was fascinating, though, was when they first start chit-chatting, it's all very surface level, as you do, when you're riding in an Uber or a taxi or something like that. And you definitely get the vibe that the taxi driver is, really into this beautiful young woman. And there's some flirting going on. And in my mind, I'm just like, oh, what a, cliche, dirty old man. But then you see the dynamic change where now it's more of a father figure giving his daughter advice. And you see that change take place in Sean Penn's face and body language. And I thought that that was really cleverly done. It's very subtle, but I saw that. And that to me is a masterclass in acting. And I loved that. As I mentioned, we have to read a lot of texts. This is not a movie that you can have playing on the background, when it goes to streaming while your eyes are doing something else or you're typing or folding laundry or even cooking. You have to watch the screen because so much that happens is on the cell phone. All right. And then one of the things that bugged me was I just wanted to shake Dakota Johnson's character out of her dumb funk and leave this married man that she was having an affair with. Just smack some sense into her. That makes me sound like I'm such a violent person, which I'm not. But the whole time she's texting this stupid man who has a wife, and she's just so torn on, does she love him? Should she stay with him? I wanted the taxi driver to just say, leave him already. Find a single guy. You live in New York. There are some guys in New York. He does offer a lot of really good advice, and you see her thinking about it, but simultaneously she still continues, these sexting conversations, and I'm just like, oh, grow up. Anyway, okay, enough of the mother rant in me. It is Movie Review Mom channel after all. All right, so whenever I watch movies, I write down funny lines and interesting lines so you can get a taste for the dialogue and the script writing quality. And you can see all of them on my written review at moviereviewmom.com, but I'll share some of them with you right now. So there was one thing that I don't know, I just thought it was kind of funny, but Dakota Johnson's character, by the way, is named Girly. She doesn't want to share her name, which is kind of funny because he knows where she lives. He could find out, because he's dropping her off at her house. But anyway, they're having this conversation and he's giving her some tough love. He's giving her some advice about mistakes he's made, and he's able to look back and see those mistakes. And so, he's saying, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, or whatever. And she says, I seriously effing hate you right now. Except for she doesn't say effing, she says, the whole thing. But anyway, it just kind of made me laugh because you could tell it is sort of soaking in and she's considering it. And that she really doesn't jump out of the car, but she stays in the car and wants this conversation. You could tell she's never had a conversation like this before. And so I thought that was really interesting too. And then some interesting lines. In fact, all three of the interesting lines that I wrote down are spoken by Sean Penn's character, whose name is Clark. And so at the beginning, he says to her, it's nice to see someone not on their phone. And because she's not, which is impressive, especially for a 34-year-old woman, right? But then she can't help herself like all 34-year-old women. And she's all, texting like crazy. He doesn't give her a hard time about it, but I thought that was interesting. And then he's talking about a woman that he was married to in the past, and he's sort of reliving the moments and how they met. And he says, she was like a summer day, And I just thought, what a beautiful thing to say about someone, because everybody loves a summer day. It just is one of love and hope and joy and brightness in someone's life. And I just thought describing it that way was so lovely. And then one piece of advice that he gives her, which I think is good advice for all of us, is when he says, just keep breathing. Now, you might say, that's just good advice. Breathing is good, right? But it has to do with some experiences that she had in the past. And it's a way of telling her you can get out of it. You can work out of these tricky situations. All right. So while I was watching the movie, I instantly thought of 3 other two-hander movies where it's just 2 people having interesting conversations. The first one that I thought of is a recent movie called After Sun. It's about a father and daughter, and they go on vacation, just the 2 of them. And it's touching and heartbreaking and sweet all at the same time. I will cue that one up so you can watch my review of that after you finish watching this one. And then another one that's such a classic is in terms of romance too, is called Before Sunrise. There are actually 3 of them, and I loved all of them. But the first one is truly special because it was unique at the time. A guy and a girl meet on a train in Europe, and they spend the day just chatting until sunrise when they need to part their ways. And then we see them reunite again before sunrise. No, before sunset and before midnight, moonlight, something like that. I forget. Anyway, they're all good. And then the last one that I wanted to recommend is a classic called My Dinner with Andre. Again, 2 people just talking, having a really interesting conversation. I hope that you enjoy this kind of movie. Not everybody does. And this particular one was rough just because of all of the sex conversation and the sexting and all of that. I didn't care for that part of it. I thought they could have done some deeping with their conversations, but that was part of it and definitely a part of their lives. All right, hopefully that this film review gave you some insight on whether or not you want to spend time or money watching it. If you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe and comment down below. And by the way, all of those videos that I mentioned have links in the description below, and some of them are Amazon links. And so if you click on it to purchase or rent, Amazon will send me a few little pretty pennies, and that helps my channel to grow. Have a fantastic day and find me on social media, say hello, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.